It's Thursday, May 28. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. Over 50 countries, key experts and organizations, including the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and World Bank, were represented at a virtual high-level meeting of the United Nations on Thursday morning. The meeting, held to address critical financial issues and the economic devastation caused by COVID-19, was convened by Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. More from PBCJ's reporter, Gabriel Thompson.
This crisis represents a unique opportunity to remedy socioeconomic disparities. We have a duty to ourselves and succeeding generations to put in place a bold, innovative, and resilient system to address the profound structural issues that impact our economies and our people. Excellencies, your participation today demonstrates the collective will of the international community to rally together to combat the wide-ranging impact of the coronavirus pandemic now and in the years ahead. Let us seize the moment.
In his opening remarks, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke of the need to think outside the box in devising a global coordinated plan to tackle the social and economic crisis prompted by the health crisis coronavirus COVID-19.
Over the coming months, we will all be working together in different work streams to bring forward ambitious but pragmatic solutions. Canada is ready to do our part as we help bring the world together in the fight against COVID-19. COVID-19 is an unprecedented challenge for our modern world, but it's also a unique opportunity to build a better future, to create a safe and prosperous world and an international system that recognizes who's left behind and strives to lift them up.
In his opening remarks, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres noted the world is in an unprecedented human crisis due to a microscopic virus and underscored the need for immediate collective action in 6 critical areas, including gender equality, global liquidity, and sovereign debt.
The economic fallout from the pandemic threatens to cause a wave of default in developing countries. Widespread debt crises will set back the response to COVID-19 and impede sustainable development for many years to come. The countries affected would have no prospect of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The G20 debt moratorium is a first step, but it only covers the least developed countries. I recently had the opportunity to visit several Caribbean and Pacific islands, middle-income countries that have made steady economic progress despite being on the front lines of the climate crisis. Thanks to early and decisive action, they have largely been spared the health impact of COVID-19. But many are heavily indebted and their economies are now in free fall. Small island states rely heavily on tourism and remittances. Both are now at a standstill. Households that had a secure income are at imminent risk of poverty and hunger.
The chair of the African Union and president of the Republic of South Africa highlighted the need for a comprehensive debt framework and targeted debt relief to ensure sustainable development.
South Africa supports the call of the African Union for a debt standstill for 2 years. We support the allocation of more IMF special drawing rights to help central banks, the corporate sector, and small medium enterprises to withstand the shocks caused by the pandemic.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel stressed the need for solidarity in tackling the crisis brought on by COVID-19. She also spoke of opportunities,
which is to say that our programs need to be in line with Agenda 23, with the Paris Climate Agreement, and with the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. Germany continues to be committed to these objectives. This is why we support the European Commission's Green Deal. We have doubled our funds for the international climate finance when compared to 2014, because for us, climate protection and resilience are integral elements of our development cooperation. During our presidency of the G7 and the G20, for example, we have worked to advance climate risk insurance schemes. However, deciding on measures isn't enough. We must also ensure that these measures have the desired effect. It is important thus to ensure that international standards are adhered to. Last but not least, this entails that we stand up with determination to corruption and illicit financial flows. COVID-19 tests the international community, unparalleled since the Second World War. Only if we cooperate closely can we emerge stronger from the crisis, and we need to do that in order to be able to tackle other global problems on our agenda. We need the United Nations in order to overcome the pandemic with all its impacts at a global scale. Above all, we now need the World Health Organization. The World Bank and the IMF play a central role when it comes to overcoming the liquidity and financing problems of countries that are especially hard hit. Thus, Germany supports the United Nations and the World Bank, be it through speedily dispersing additional funds, be it through targeted reallocation of funds. And I would like to encourage others too to consider appropriate reallocation of funds. The time to act is now.
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
Jamaica's economy contracted by an estimated 1.7% for the January to March 2020 quarter relative to the corresponding period last year. The Planning Institute of Jamaica Director General Dr. Wayne Henry says the March 2020 quarter outturn largely reflected implementation of measures to manage the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, which commenced in mid-March.
The outturn for January to March 2020 largely reflected the impact of 1. The implementation of measures to manage the COVID-19 pandemic commencing in mid-March, to include the closure of international borders to the movement of persons, which curtailed external demand and essentially halted all tourist-related activities, implementation of curfews, which restricted opening hours of some businesses and adversely impacted the demand for some goods and services, the closure of all schools, and the implementation of general stay-at-home and work-from-home orders. 2, lower capacity utilization within the mining and quarrying industry, following the temporary closure of Jamaica's largest alumina refinery in September 2019 to upgrade capacity. And 3, a continued slowdown in construction-related activities, consequent on the ending of major road infrastructure projects, the slow startup of new projects, as well as a slowing in building construction activities. The contraction was partially tempered by an uptick in agriculture production, as well as increased manufacturing activities.
Speaking at a press brief on Wednesday, Dr. Henry said the growth prospects for the April to June 2020 quarter are generally negative based on the anticipated impact of COVID-19. Intense and sharp exchanges were made in Parliament as parliamentarians debated an amendment to the Financial Administration and Audit Act. Marlon Samuels reports.
The bill will facilitate the extension of the timeline from March 31, 2026 to March 31, 2028 for the government's debt to gross domestic product, GDP, target of 60%. The opposition urged the government not to proceed with the debate. They argued that it needed more time to prepare and make meaningful presentations on a critical piece of statute. Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips also raised concerns about the government's approach.
Is this the best way? We haven't had a chance to look at it. We deserve to look at it. That's the role of the Parliament. If you want another time, we certainly need more than 5 minutes. We certainly need more than the time that you are bringing it here. He hasn't even seen it. How many members have seen it? None. It's not the way to run a country, Mr. Speaker. It is simply another expression of a determination to use the power because they have it and to ignore the rights of all the people in the country.
Member of Parliament and PAAC Chairman Mark Golding also raised concerns.
I think it's important not to suggest that the opposition is trying to delay anything. This is a very, very important piece of legislation, as short as it is, and as rushed as it may be. Extraordinary times need extraordinary measures, but extraordinary measures done in haste can result in extraordinary mistakes that in the future may come back to haunt us. And this legislation, the fiscal responsibility framework, is about avoiding being haunted by improper, irregular, or misguided executive power.
For those who are listening on, in addition to providing for the suspension of standing orders at Standing Order 86, Standing Order 49 specifically provides for the moving of a bill through the different stages, notwithstanding the time frame specified for the stages to be taken at an earlier time than 4 days or forthwith. So for those who are saying that rules are being breached, it is important for those listening and watching to understand that the rules do provide for what is being asked for. May it so please you.
Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark said the government had no choice but to press ahead with the passage of the law. He noted that a delay in debating the bill would mean a pushback in the examination and passage of the first supplementary estimates of expenditure.
If it was up to them, Mr. Speaker, all they're interested is delay, delay. They want us to delay, delay. For what, Mr. Speaker? The need is now. The people need assistance now.
There is nothing in what we have said that would cause any benefit to be delayed to any member. What we are talking about
But
is
that's not true, Mr. Speaker.
Sit down.
Point of order. That's not
Sit
true.
down.
That's not
Sit
true.
down.
That's not true.
Sit down
But you
until
said
I finish.
that's not true.
Sit down.
It's not true.
Sit down until
Not
I finish.
true.
Sit down.
The Financial Administration and Audit Act was eventually passed without amendment. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
Special guidelines for shelters and emergency operations are being developed by the government in preparation for the upcoming hurricane season. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the guidelines are being finalized by the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness with the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in mind.
Shelter operations are of particular importance to the government, given the COVID measures of social distancing and the potential for the spread of the virus and the impact on the most vulnerable in our society. And when we say the most vulnerable, we're talking now about our older citizens and our citizens that have comorbidities, certain illnesses, particularly diabetes, hypertension, obesity.
Mr. Holness says shelters are being inspected by municipal corporations and other response agencies, given the implications of the health crisis during the hurricane season.
This would include ensuring that these shelters have isolation areas, that if it became the case that you suspected or confirmed that someone who is homeless who would need to use the shelter is ill or has the COVID-19 and they are not able to be taken from that facility to a health facility, then at least you would have the provision locally within the facility for isolation.
The National Hurricane, Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is predicting 13 to 19 named storms. The forecast includes 3 to 6 major hurricanes of Category 3 or higher. There have already been 2 named storms before the June 1 official start of the season. May 28 is the birth date of Jamaica's 5th Prime Minister, Edward Philip George Seaga. He died May 28, 2019, the date of his 89th birth date. A wreath-laying ceremony is being held to commemorate his birth date and contribution to Jamaica. The PBCJ salutes the journey of his life as well as the scale of his achievements.
The Right Honorable Edward Seaga was educated at the Wilmer's Boys School in Kingston, Jamaica, and Boston-based Harvard University in the United States of America. He returned to Jamaica in 1955 and began to work as a researcher. He was also integrally involved in music.
Songs were being promoted by Virgins in this opportunity hour, which the artists would be singing songs that they had composed, or they would be singing songs that are, from the regular traditional repertoire. And there was this song called Manio, which won a first prize in his Virgins competition. And so I decided I was going to record that. Now, what I didn't know I was doing at the time, which turned out to be a turning point, was I just went ahead and got it recorded and printed on vinyl. Before that, the records were being produced by sound system men, operators, and they were putting it on acetates. Now, acetate has no long time endurance in terms of replays.
He was elected to the Legislative Council, now the Senate, in 1959 at the age of 29 years, the youngest Jamaican to ever achieve that milestone. In 1961, he was a part of the team that drafted Jamaica's constitution. In 1962, he was elected a JLP Member of Parliament for the Western Kingston constituency.
I was then Minister of Development, and I told them I wanted culture as a subject. And from that I was able to promote the ska. The uptown people were listening to the Pat Boons and Johnny Mathis and so on. And that's what Baron Lee was playing. I realized now to get it uptown, we had to crash the parties and get a new mentality up there. So a couple of things were done. One was I took Baron Lee downtown to Chocamo Lawn, which was my headquarters. I had a little band that played there every evening. I just gave them the instruments and they taught themselves. They eventually became the techniques. And they played every evening. Crowds of kids would gather. And I took him and he heard them playing. And I heard him muttering to himself and tapping out his feet. Oh, it's something different, and he's just discovering it. And he went up and started to play the downtown beat. Now, once he did that, it would enter the party stream. But there was a different party, and that was a teenage dance party for a different set of kids through JBC's Teenage Dance Party on a Friday afternoon. And they took the downtown music as what they wanted to play. You see, breaking the mold away from RJR. And they used as their theme song a song called Beardman Shuffle, which was the local name for Live It Up by Ernie Freeman, which the label had been scraped off. You see? And with that, they then started to play the new music that was coming out from downtown, the ska and all that sort of stuff. But when Millie Small made a #1 with My Boy Lollipop, and the uptown people realized that this was international, that was a big step forward for them. If it is good in London, it must be good here. And then plus Byron, plus the Teenage Dance Party, we were able to make the move from downtown to uptown.
It was during this time that he transformed what was one of the worst slums in Jamaica, called Baka Wall, into a modern, low-income residential community, which was called Tivoli Gardens. 1980 was a defining moment in his political career. He became Prime Minister of Jamaica in a landslide victory. The win ushered a number of social and economic reforms. His policies resulted in sweeping economic changes, which led to the birth of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, several banking and financial institutions, and the Student Loan Bureau. Mr. Seaga was a champion of Jamaica's culture. He drew national attention to and promoted Jamaica's unique national and religious identity, music, art, language, and literature took center stage, measures which provided a greater sense of identity and unity.
When I try to get people to understand their religion, I'm trying to help them to build their souls.
He was also progressive on educational issues. To that end, he introduced the Human Employment and Resource Training Program, more popularly referred to as HEART, to provide high-quality, career-ready standards that prepares students to meet the demands of the global economy. Despite his successes, he lost power in 1989. Though he remained leader of the JLP, he was not able to regain the highest office in the land before bowing out of representational politics in 2005. Mr. Seaga laid the foundations for a sustainable future. Drawing on the lessons of his life, he shared his vision for what we should aspire to and can attain as a country.
Based on current perceptions, many feel that the Jamaican flag should be flown upside down as the accepted international signal of distress. But the design of this flag is unusual. It is the same pattern whether it is flown upside down or downside up. Maybe this is meant to convey that there will be no need to signal any lasting distress in Jamaica if new visions replace age-old failures in a new perspective of the future. I thank you all very much.
To get the latest gas prices and other market news, we go to the Business Report with Gabriel Thompson.
According to the latest ex-refinery costs from Petrojam, motorists should see an increase at the pumps in the price of gasoline and diesel effective Thursday, May 28. 87 and 90 octane gasoline will be sold for $117.67 and $120.51 per liter respectively, up by 25 cents each. Automotive diesel fuel will be sold for $110.15 per liter, following an increase of 25 cents, while ultra-low sulfur is also up by 25 cents and will now be sold for $116.91 per liter. Meanwhile, kerosene increased in price by 25 cents and will be sold for $92.64 per liter. Propane liquid petroleum will be sold for $47.46 per liter, up by $3.06, and butane liquid petroleum will be sold for $50.79 per liter after an increase of $1.95. Marketing companies and retailers will add their respective markup to these prices. In Wednesday's trading session, the JSE combined index declined by 2,069 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 82 stocks, of which 25 advanced, 42 declined, and 15 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 19 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services, Caribbean Cream Limited, and Dolphin Cove Limited. Stocks declined for Burrito Investments Limited, Blue Power Group, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Variable Preference, AMG Packaging and Paper, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Lasco Manufacturing Limited was the volume leader with over 6 million units, followed by Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 5.7 million units and Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with over 5 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Wednesday, May 27 ended trading at $144.60. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $106.21. The pound sterling traded for $178.49, and the euro ended trading at $160.14. Oil prices fell on Thursday after U.S. industry data showed a surprise steep build in crude oil inventories, dampening hopes of a smooth recovery in demand as some countries ease coronavirus lockdowns. Brent crude futures fell $1.12 to settle at $34.35 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were down 50 cents to $32.31 a barrel. That's it for the business report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
This week, host Simone Absalom follows the Culinary Trail to Gloria's Seafood City.
Hi. How you doing? I'm here to make a pickup. Gloria's Seafood City in downtown Kingston has one of the most beautiful views of the ocean. It's only topped by their mouth-watering food. Gloria's Seafood Restaurant has its genesis in a little fishing village in Port Royal, East Kingston, Jamaica. It's been a staple restaurant for decades now, both for locals and tourists. We've caught up with Minka Limptom. He is from the Gloria Seafood Management. Thanks so very much for agreeing to speak with us.
Okay, thank you for having me.
So why did you decide, after so many years being in Port Royal, to expand to Kingston?
It's just the younger generation building on what Grandma started. If you check it out, the Glorias in Port Royal were always on the sea. So downtown coming back, we approached Mr. Azar, and that's why we're here. We love this. We want to be on the sea. So we have downtown and we have Ocho Rios, and that's on the sea as well.
Any further plans for expansion?
Well, right now we're going to do a food truck. So we're doing a couple food trucks. People don't come out that much, so we will be going to people instead of waiting on people to come to us. Yes, we do offer takeout, and the takeout menu is basically the menu that we offer every day. But the food truck, we will be having lunch special. We do baby showers, we do birthday parties, we do office events, so people do come and reserve the outside where the sea view is and stuff.
Wow, wow. And in terms of events within the office, can persons ask for catering outside?
Sure, we do catering as well. So we don't just do seafood on our caterings. So we can do from chicken to goat, anything.
My name is Chef Alva Denny. I'm the head chef at Gloria Seafood, where we prepare everything seafood. We have a wide range of seafood dishes. When it comes on to shrimp, we have honey jerk shrimp, buttered shrimp, curried shrimp, garlic shrimp, or we could even do curry coconut, a chef special with coconut shrimp. Fish lovers, we have steamed fish, brown stew fish, roast fish, curried coconut fish, steamed coconut fish. Did I say escovitch? No, I didn't. Escovitch is same thing as fried fish. And also, for person that don't eat seafood, we do a little chicken. So you can get it baked or fried, or any way you choose. come down to Gloria Seafood City. We have the best seafood here on the island. I mean, the ambience is great. Right on the seafront, it's so very nice, right? Even though our food is next to none. So make it Glorias any day, anytime.
Hi. Hi, good day. I'm here to make a pickup.
Can I have your name, please?
Simone.
Okay, hi, Simone. Ready for you.
Okay, that was quick. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
In regional news, St. Lucia's External Affairs Minister Sarah Flood-Boburn has reassured citizens abroad that the government is doing all it can to bring them home. We go to HGS News Force for the details.
St. Lucians stuck abroad are not forgotten, and repatriating nationals remains a top priority for the government. That's the sentiment of External Affairs Minister Sarah Flood-Boburn, who admits that the government's efforts may be curtailed by the short notice of flights and vessels. But St. Lucians overseas are urged to keep in touch with consulates and missions.
And whilst we can't make any promises, if we have an idea of who's out there, who needs to come home, that helps us in our negotiations. So I wish to again reassure everyone that your government is working. We are taking the repatriation exercise very seriously. We are committed to assisting every St. Lucian who's out there who needs to come home in the best way we can. What we can do is limited, so there is a need for exercising patience. We work with airlines and the vessels and the governments when we know there is a flight.
Flood-Boburn stated that every repatriation effort has its unique set of challenges. She pointed to the fact that it may be too costly for the government to charter flights to bring citizens home.
Wherever we know that there are flights operating, our missions overseas, our high commissions overseas, our ambassadors and consuls general and high commissioners work very hard to speak with the agencies, speak with the airlines, speak with the charters, speak with the vessels, speak with the governments to ensure that wherever there are St. Lucians who want to come home, that we are able to repatriate them as efficiently and as quickly as possible. And this is what we have been doing, and we will continue to do that.
To date, some 399 St. Lucians, cruise workers and students, inclusive of the 151 who arrived over the weekend, have been successfully brought home. The External Affairs Minister reassured the public that the government is committed to assisting St. Lucians stranded overseas.
They are in the UK, Southampton to be precise. There are St. Lucians who are still within the region, students who have not been able to come home. And the government of St. Lucia continues to place this matter at a very, very high priority. We understand what it is like in such a time of crisis, with such a pandemic that has descended upon us. The people want to be home. They want to be with families. And so I do wish to give the assurance on behalf of the government of St. Lucia that this is foremost in our minds.
This is the second group of nationals to be repatriated this month. 219 St. Lucians returned home aboard the Carnival, Gloria and Caribbean Princess cruise ships on May 8, 2020. The repatriation effort is being done in batches due to the limited capacity of quarantine facilities. Gina Filippi, HTS News Force.
In sports, reggae boy Jeremie Lynch is set to return to play in club football in Vietnam as measures continue to ease during the COVID-19 pandemic. The 29-year-old represents Tan Quan Minh in the Vietnamese Pro League. He is down to play in the quarterfinals of the Vietnamese Cup on Saturday. Lynch picked up a strain in a practice match recently, but says he's now recovered. He scored 2 goals so far in the 2020 season. Meanwhile, Jamaican international Leon Bailey has returned to competitive action in the German Bundesliga. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.